I think something evil moved into the house next door, and my wife let it in. So, I live in a quiet cul-de-sac in a little town called Ashwood Hollow. Pretty normal place. Small, nosy neighborhood. Everyone knows everyone. Nothing bad ever happens here. That was true until last September. I swear I'm not crazy, and I'm not one of those people who posts for attention, but what's been going on next door is straight up nightmare fuel. And yeah, I know how this sounds, but if you've ever felt like something wrong moved in next to you, you might understand. It started on a Friday. Cold wind, early fall. I was having my usual cup of coffee out on the porch when a massive old moving truck pulled up to the house next door. You know the one. It had been abandoned for years after the Larrabee family died in a freak accident. Don't get me started on that. It was practically falling apart. Imagine my surprise when this beat-up Mayflower truck stops there and out come three people. A tall man with a limp, a woman with a weirdly frozen smile, and a little boy who couldn't stop staring at the sky. I gave them a neighborly wave. Only the woman half waved back, and it didn't feel right. That night, Dana, my wife, and I heard something coming from their house. Music. Not like modern music, more like scratchy 1930s jazz on a loop. Then came the laughing. High-pitched, creepy as hell laughing that didn't sound like it belonged to a kid. We thought it might be the TV. Or maybe we just wanted to believe that. Even Baxter, our golden retriever, went nuts. Barking at the door, hackles up. That dog only reacts like that to thunderstorms and fireworks. So that was red flag #1. Next day, Dana did her classic welcome move. Baked cookies, wrapped them nice, and said we should introduce ourselves. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I went along. Normal neighbor stuff, right? The boy answered the door, and man, I'm not kidding. This kid creeped me the hell out. His eyes were huge, almost all pupil, and the way he blinked? Slow, reptile-like. My mom's not home, he said. Voice totally flat. Dana asked, super nicely, "Oh, should we come back later?" She doesn't like visitors. Then he closed the door. Not slammed. Just shut it, like we were done. That night, every window on their house got boarded up. I'm talking thick, fresh plywood nailed from the inside. I only noticed because I went out to grab the mail and caught the sound of a nail gun going off upstairs. Weird, right? It gets worse. By Sunday, the smell started. Something was rotting. Like roadkill and sewage had a baby, and it decided to live in our backyard. I tried to chalk it up to some dead animal, but then Dana found 3 gutted raccoons behind our garage. Their insides were missing, like surgically removed, that we called animal control. They brushed it off as coyotes. By Tuesday, I was locking all the doors, even the inside ones. The air felt heavier, like the kind of pressure you get before a thunderstorm, except it never let up. And at night, I started having dreams. Always. The same. A shadowy figure standing at the foot of our bed. Not moving. Just watching. Breathing loud enough to wake me up in a cold sweat. One night, I got fed up and looked out the back window around 2 a.m. Thought maybe it was a raccoon or something. Nope. The boy was there. Just standing in their backyard. Still. Eyes glowing. Faintly in the dark like some kind of animal. And then he smiled. I've seen horror movies. This isn't me being paranoid. Something is wrong in that house. The next morning, Baxter wouldn't go near the back door. I called for him like usual. Coffee in one hand, leash in the other, but he whimpered and tucked himself under the kitchen table like we were in the middle of a thunderstorm. This was a dog who once charged headfirst into a kiddie pool to chase a squirrel. I'd never seen him act scared like this. I tried to tempt him out with treats. Bacon. Nothing worked. Finally, I stepped outside alone, leaving the door cracked just in case. The air smelled different, sharper, and the grass on the border between our yards yellowed like it had been burned overnight. I squatted down to touch it. The soil underneath was cold. Not cool. Cold. Like pulling something from the fridge. In September, during a heat wave, weirdest of all, scratches. Long, thin gouges in the wooden fence. 5 marks, spaced like fingers. Whatever made them had claws, and they were trying to come through. I took pictures. Sent them to Dana. She texted, "Back, WTF?" Exactly. That night, Dana suggested we call someone. Like, police, or maybe even a local reporter. I said we'd look like lunatics. No actual crime had occurred, unless smelling like hell and traumatizing raccoons was illegal. Around 1 a.m., I woke to scratching, not in the yard, Inside the walls. At first I thought it was mice. But mice don't drag things. This sounded like long nails scraping upward, like whatever was inside was climbing. I followed the sound from the living room up the stairs. It stopped when I reached the hallway. Dana was awake, sitting straight. Up in bed. She'd heard it too. Then the baby monitor crackled, which is terrifying, because we don't have kids. The monitor sat in the corner of the room, left by the previous owners. We'd never bothered to get rid of it. It buzzed again. Then a high-pitched giggle. Dana gasped. I grabbed it, yanked out the batteries, and threw it in the closet. We didn't sleep much after that. The next day, Dana made me go to the library. She was researching the house next door, convinced there was something old and evil going on. I rolled my eyes but went along. Happy wife, less haunted life, right? Turns out, the Larrabee family didn't just die in an accident. Their daughter, 9 years old, disappeared the night before the crash. They never found her. Police ruled it as a runaway. But in the archived interviews, the mom said something that stuck with me. She started talking to the boy in the walls. I slammed the book shut. That wasn't something I needed in my brain. When I got home, Dana was pale, trembling. She held up her phone that she'd been filming. The hallway. Set up our camera because she thought she kept hearing whispers to 3:12 a.m. The door to our guest room opened slowly, on its own, and a hand, small, pale, clawed, reached out. Then it vanished. Something had come through the wall. I told you, something's wrong next door. The basement light didn't work. I stood there for what felt like an hour, staring into the black, trying to will myself to take the first step. Eventually, I grabbed a flashlight, braced myself, and went down. The air was freezing. The kind of cold that creeps into your bones. The stink was overwhelming. Mold, blood, rot. I kept the flashlight ahead of me like a shield. Something was carved into the walls. Symbols. Circles with eyes inside. Stick figures with arms stretched too long. At the bottom of the stairs, the concrete floor had been cracked open. Jagged, like something had burst out. I called Dana's name. No answer, but I did hear whispering. Coming from under the floor. I followed the sound toward the furnace. Behind it, there was a hatch. Old, metal, rusted, and open. I don't know what came over me, but I climbed down. The tunnel was barely tall enough to crouch. Dirt walls. The smell was worst here. I gagged, almost turned back. Then I saw light ahead, and Dana's scarf. I ran. What I found at the end of the tunnel didn't feel like it belonged on this planet. A room. Circular, lined with candles. The walls weren't dirt anymore. They were flesh. Pulsing, wet, and Dana was floating in the center. Eyes open, mouth moving, whispering something over and over. It wants a name. It wants a name. The boy stepped out from behind her. Only it wasn't a boy anymore. The night after we caught that footage, Dana and I slept in shifts. We weren't ready to leave, not yet. Call it pride or just stubborn fear, but I didn't want to abandon my home. Around 2 a.m., I heard Baxter growling low from the foot of the stairs. He wouldn't stop. When I peeked over the banister, I saw him planted at the base, teeth bared, fur bristling like a porcupine. He was staring at the floor vent. I knelt beside him. Cold air was pouring through it, colder than it should have been. I got a flashlight and shined it down there. For a second, I thought I saw movement. Something pale, slithering, gone too fast to track. I couldn't be sure, but Baxter sure as hell saw it. He didn't sleep at all that night. Next morning, I pulled up one of the old vent grates and stuck a camera inside. It was a cheap GoPro. Knockoff Dana had bought a few years ago, but it worked out. We watched the footage that afternoon. Most of it was normal, dust, cobwebs, nothing alarming. Until around the 2:17 mark. A face. Not human. Pale, hairless, with wide black eyes and a stretched grin. It stared straight into the camera like it had known we were watching. Then it opened its mouth and whispered Dana's name. We both screamed. I dropped the laptop. Baxter barked like his soul was on fire. Dana wanted to leave right then. Pack a bag, hotel, something. I agreed, but said we should at least warn the neighbors. Anyone who might still be around. I went door to door. Nobody answered. Every house on our cul-de-sac was quiet. Too quiet. One door was left ajar. Mail piling up. It felt abandoned, except us, in them. When I got back, Dana was gone. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter. Still warm to the touch. No note. Nothing. Only the faint smell of that rot again, thicker. Now, Like it was moving through the walls that I heard the front door creak. When I turned, the boy was standing in the hallway, not outside. Inside that he smiled, eyes too wide, head cocked like a bird. "My mom wants to meet you," he whispered then. He vanished, and the basement door slowly swung open. I stood frozen in the doorway of that room, if it could even be called a room. My flashlight dimmed as if the darkness itself was feeding on the light. Dana floated there, her mouth still moving in a rhythmic chant, voice low and toneless. "It wants a name. It wants a name." The boy, or what used to be the boy, stepped forward, its body elongated with each step, joints bending the wrong way, limbs stretching unnaturally like melted wax trying to mimic human form. Its smile remained, fixed, splitting its face in half. She gave herself willingly. It whispered in a voice that layered over itself like an echo trapped in metal. "Let her go," I yelled, stepping into the room. My breath fogged in front of me, even though sweat poured down my back. "She's part of it now." She opened the door. "You live next to the door, didn't you know?" I looked around wildly. The walls were alive, breathing. Beneath Dana, a circular sigil glowed faintly red on the floor. No, not glowing. Bleeding. I ran to her, hands shaking, reaching up to pull her down, but an invisible force stopped me cold. My fingers hovered inches from her face. Her eyes blinked slowly. "It's hungry. You have to feed it." Then the light died completely. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward. Something brushed against my leg, cold, slimy. I swung the flashlight around, but it was no longer working. I pulled out my phone. Dead. Everything was dead that I heard whispers now, coming from all around. "We never left. We never left. We never left." And then the unmistakable voice of the Larrabee girl. "Don't let it name you. Don't answer. No matter what." Suddenly, a blinding white light burst from the circle under Dana. She collapsed, limp and gasping for air. I didn't hesitate. I scooped her up and ran. Ran like hell, back through the tunnel, slipping and crawling and praying whatever was behind us wouldn't follow. When we got back to the basement, the door slammed shut behind me. The rot was gone. The cold was gone. Dana coughed and opened her eyes. "I saw it," she whispered. "It's not just under the house. It's under everything." We packed our bags that night. No debates. No more trying to understand. Whatever that thing was, it had been waiting for someone like Dana, someone kind, someone curious, to open the door. And now that it was awake, I wasn't sure we could stop it. The house next door? Empty again. The boards are gone. The grass is green. People are moving in tomorrow. I tried to warn them, but they laughed it off. Said the place was a steal. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I hear the scratching again, and I know we didn't escape. Not really, because once you hear its name, it never forgets yours.